Hello everyone and welcome to another custom figure showcase and the final video in my The War Doctors custom figure showcase series. So obviously some of these weren't originally part of my War Doctors series, but I decided to retroactively include them in this series. But today we're going to look over what they all are. So from the left we have a regenerated War Doctor from Night of the Doctor. We have a young War Doctor from the comic The Clockwise War, we have a young War Doctor from the comic Ambush, we have a young War Doctor from the comic The Lost Dimension, we have an older War Doctor from the comic The Whole Thing's Bananas, and then lastly we have the War Doctor from Day of the Doctor, but it's my own sort of repaint interpretation of it. So yeah, these are all really come out well, because the War Doctor was kind of one of those ones that, rather like when I originally did the 5 Doctors, the War Doctor was one that was really difficult to come up with good ideas, because we didn't see that much of him. But as the comics and more stuff started to come out for him, we saw a lot more ideas of him, and certainly he's one of those characters that if there are more versions of him seen in comics, especially sort of younger ones, I may well make them. But for now, I'm really pleased with sort of the finished product of these, and they've all come together really well. Obviously, this whole thing started out with the regenerated War Doctor, which was just a random idea. I didn't think it would end up becoming a whole huge series, but it really sort of has led to something which I think has come out really, really well. And it's very difficult to pick a particular favourite out of all of these, because each of them in their own way has something that is unique, and something that is unique to me, I should say, as the sort of person that's put them all together. Because from the left, sort of the regenerated War Doctor was something that was sort of one of the first or second, I think it was the second or third actually, regenerated Doctor figure that I've made, and that sort of also kicked off my regeneration customs in a way, or carried it on. But it was mainly also, it was the first time that I'd really done a custom head sculpt and really changed it up. So that was a huge sort of leap forward of something that I'd never done before, but it came out really well. And obviously through that it also inspired me to make the other ones. The Clockwise War version is again one that the head sculpt, I had to really do a lot of work on it, more so than the regenerated War Doctor, because I had to sculpt on all of his hair and everything like that, and that sort of, you know, added to it means I had to do a lot more. And then moving on to the Ambush version, this was one that was sort of a step further, because for this I had to take a sculpt of a young War Doctor from I think it might have been this one, or it might have been it might have been the Clockwise War version, but that was one that I had to actually not use an original head. All of these, the young War Doctor, the regenerated War Doctor, the Clockwise War Doctor, and the two on the end are all standard head sculpts that I've just sort of repainted and adapted. But these two were actually ones that they were head sculpts that I had to make casts of. So it was a sort of quite a bit of a learning process in terms of painting the casts and getting that sort of put together and working. And it was certainly one that was a bit different, because it meant I did have to sort of chop and change what I was doing, and again it adds to the learning curve of it. But they came out really well, and I really loved the contrast that there was on the Ambush outfit, the sort of the dark compared to the light red as well. The Lost Dimension one, I think, is the one that is, I don't want to say my least favourite in a negative way, but I think out of all of these it's the one that does sort of look a bit out of place, because the colour scheme that what we saw in that comic was so, we saw very little of him, so I did have to make up sort of a lot of this colour scheme, you know, in terms of sort of interpretations, and it's worked well. I do like it, and it does stand out from the others, I have to say. But I think there is just something about the slightly lighter jacket which just looks a little bit strange, but it has worked well. The Whole Thing's Bananas one, I think he's probably my favourite out of all of these, because whilst I'm really happy with them all and I've put a lot of work into them, this one was sort of one that I was really dubious about doing in the first place, because of the continuity problems with the jacket and everything like that, and it just, I didn't think that the long scarf would look great, and I really had the most doubts about this one. But in doing so, it's actually come out the best, because the scarf looks great, and the coat, for me personally, is something that I'm immensely proud of, because it represents something that I didn't think I'd be. I certainly wouldn't have been able to do several years ago, and it's sort of one of those personal milestones for me that I look at it and think it's not perfect. It does have some rough edges, and there are bits I could improve. But looking at it personally, it is something which I can see the progress I've made in that, and I am very pleased with that. And then the actual just plain War Doctor, I'm happy with, because ultimately it is just one of those ones that it looks nice on the shelf, it looks nice in my lineup. And it's a bit of a, as much as I love the actual figure we got, it's a bit of an improvement on the original, because I'm much preferring the weathering I made on that, and then also the things like just the boots and the hair that I repainted on that has just come out very, very well. But as I said, you know, this has been a really fun project to do as a series, and I would certainly love to do more War Doctors, particularly young ones if he appears in the comics. I'm sure some people are going to pitch ideas saying, well, what about this, what about that? I know there's a fan film with a slightly younger War Doctor, but as much as that look that they've given him in that fan film, we never actually see his face, we only ever see him from behind or in shots. He does look brilliant in that, and that is one that I am considering, but I didn't want to make it as part of this series because I wasn't quite sure how to do it. But now that I've put together these, particularly the whole things bananas one with the coat, that is one that I may well do in future. So I have no immediate plans to do it, but it is one I may do in future. But if we do see more young War Doctors, then hopefully it is something that I will be able to have the chance to do more of, as not as part of this series, but I may do a War Doctors part 2. You never know, it could happen. But for now, that is all for my War Doctors. Now, just while I finish this, I will just say, with the exception of the last two, all of these head sculpts, the regenerated War Doctor, the Clockwise War Doctor, the Ambush War Doctor, and the Lost Dimension War Doctors, these head sculpts are now available on my Etsy shop, but I have also recently been putting up my head sculpts on eBay as well. I am still doing the one painted one a month, but luckily and quite thankfully I've had quite a bit of success on Etsy, and it has allowed me to be able to produce more of the unpainted head sculpts, and so there are 5 each of the unpainted versions available this month, 1 of the painted ones available, and they will be restocked at the end of the month. There is a link to my eBay and my Etsy in the description. If they're not there, it means they've been sold, but hopefully, like I said, is check back on the 1st of every month. I will be restocking them, and they will hopefully be there available for you to buy in future. But that brings to a close the end of another custom figure showcase and the end of the War Doctors. As always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like, favorite, subscribe, share, it really helps me out a lot. Be sure to check out the description below for a link to my Patreon. I'm doing my very first figure animation, and you can get involved. There's exclusive content and rewards for those who do so, and funding my Patreon in any way gets your name at the end of my videos. I salute you all, and I will see you in another video very soon.